Round 3 of Eagles Commanders, a lot higher stakes, a chance to get to Super Bowl 59. We'll preview it on today's crossover Thursday edition of Locked On Eagles and Locked On Commanders.
You are Locked On NFL Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Eagles fans, Commanders fans, thanks so much for making Locked On Eagles and Locked On Commanders your first listen each and every day. Crossover Thursday is presented by Prize Picks. Download the app and use the code LOCKEDONNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. I'm your host, Louis DiBiase of Locked On Eagles. He's David Harrison of Locked On Commanders. Round 3 of us doing a crossover together, David. And I think we both, after that second game with the intensity of that, thought there should be a round 3. It could happen in the playoffs, but I thought we both would probably predict that would be in the wild card round or in the divisional round, not in the NFC title for a trip to the Super Bowl. But the NFL playoffs are always kind of chaos, so I guess I shouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's always what I always tell people, when we're getting into these conversations is all you gotta do is make the tournament. Once you make the tournament, all bets are off. Anything can happen. You know what I mean? And it was thought of a long time ago that number 6 seeds and nowadays number 7 seeds, always have no chance and all that stuff. And certainly to a certain extent, the Green Bay Packers didn't help that conversation this year. But, once the Pittsburgh Steelers years ago won the Super Bowl after being a number 6 seed, that kind of really just showed you that anything can happen. And that's what the NFL does. That's what the NFL wants. The NFL wants any team, any year to be able to rise up to the top. And that's why every year, the Houston Texans gave the Commanders fan base hope. The Commanders are going to give, the Titans fan base hope this year and so on and so forth. But, at the end of the day, man, it just boils down to you don't have to be the best team in the NFL. You just have to be the best team on that day. And for the Philadelphia Eagles, Washington Commanders, one of them is going to be better than the other. And that team's going to the Super Bowl.
And I do think, over the last, I would say, decade, like the majority of the time, you've seen the 1 seed, the 2 seed get to the Final Four. But every so often you do get, like last year, the Green Bay Packers, the 7 seed, get to the second round, nearly get to the NFC title. This year, the Commanders do get to the NFC Championship. Every so often you see a team get hot at the right time. And like you said, as long as you just punch your ticket and you get hot, you can make it. And I think, David, the other thing is too, it doesn't matter what seed you are. It doesn't matter the strength of your roster. If you have elite quarterback play too, like that can also get you farther than almost any team. And Jayden Daniels right now, just talk about how on fire this rookie has been. Honestly, outside of Andrew Luck in 2011 or 2012, I don't know if I've seen a rookie like this do what he's doing.
Yeah, man. The great thing about Jayden is, he's that dual threat quarterback, but he's that dual threat quarterback that is coming into the league capable of hurting you everywhere. You know what I mean? And that's what I think is really different about Jayden. Like we go over the other dual threat quarterbacks, Josh Allen came in with accuracy issues. And I've seen that clip going around of Buffalo Bills fans, surrender Scorpion pose when they drafted Josh Allen. And, hey, look, that's fine. Then, they love him now. So that's what's more important. But Patrick Mahomes even, don't forget, like Andy Reid sat Patrick Mahomes down for a little while because he was like, you just need to learn the game. He needs to kind of get his NFL legs under him and all these things. Lamar, the running back comments and all that stuff. But Jayden has come in, man, and he can hurt you on the ground. He can hurt you with his arm. And I think what's really helped him elevate his rookie season is he can hurt you with his brain. Like his ability to see the third, fourth window throws coming and anticipate those and be patient to get them has improved dramatically. His ability to read defenses pre-snap has improved dramatically. And I would even like to say like his feel of the game flow has improved. But, Cliff Kingsbury told us a story all the way back in week 3. Monday Night Football against Cincinnati Bengals where Cliff calls a play and Jayden waves him off like a pitcher saying, I'm not throwing the curve, I'm throwing the fastball, throws a deep bomb to Terry McLaurin to help them, win that game. So his feel for the game has just always been there. It's been pretty amazing, man. Dan Quinn called Jayden Daniels the Terminator on Wednesday. And I think that's a funny analogy to make, but it is kind of what it is because the dude has he's got no feelings. He doesn't have ice in his veins. He just doesn't have veins.
Yeah, no, it's interesting too, like to look at this game from a football roster building perspective, a philosophical perspective, because it's kind of, I don't want to say the opposite ends of like the approach of how to build a contender, because I do think Jalen Hurts has been special for a lot of these last 3 years where he's made it to 2 NFC championships. And I do think ultimately in this game, and if he gets to the Super Bowl, there will have to be times that Jalen Hurts has to be special. I've just rarely seen a Super Bowl champion that didn't need that out of their quarterback. But at the same time, like the Eagles are winning because they have maybe the most complete roster in football, the number 1 defense in the league, which is crazy because they're the youngest defense in the league. And they are going off of an historic run game where Saquon Barkley is carrying you at a position that was almost seen like dead in the water this offseason. It's why, Saquon, Derrick Henry, Josh Jacobs, all these guys had to settle for maybe contracts that were less than what their talent shows. And yet Saquon was a finalist for MVP. We just saw that release today, and he's carried you in both playoff wins. So it's kind of interesting to see like one team's being carried by an elite rookie quarterback. The other one's kind of being carried by things that, NFL experts would say can't carry you anymore. So I find that fascinating.
I do too. But you know what? At the end of the day, both teams are being carried by what happens on the ground, not what happens through the air. Like it might set up, what happens in the air. Obviously, if Saquon is torching your defense, you're going to start stacking the box more. Your safeties are going to start playing closer to the line of scrimmage. They're going to obviously bite on the play actions. That's going to help out the passing game. And Jayden Daniels, his run ability impacts opposing defenses and their pass coverage ability, because we've seen time after time where Jayden gets out of the pocket and a linebacker or a safety leaves their leak assignment or leaves their intermediate passing assignment to try to chase him down. The next thing you know, you're giving up a play behind you. Those are the things that these types of players can create for your offenses. So it's guys like Derrick Henry, I know he doesn't have to worry about it right now, but like these running backs coming out in the market this offseason are really appreciative of what's happening here. And even James Cook in Buffalo, obviously I know Josh Allen is the main attraction, but James Cook has been able to do really good things. I think, the Chiefs offense hasn't been great all year, but I think certainly people would agree that it's better when Pacheco is in there than, when he's not. So I think running backs have had a little bit of a renaissance, this year, but that's what happens, man. I'm old enough to have seen a lot of iterations where running backs like, Ricky Waters and all these guys were some of my favorites when I was coming up as a kid, and the running game was dominant. Eddie George and all these guys. And then they kind of go away, and, every once in a while they kind of come back a little bit, Jamal Lewis and those guys. So it's really interesting to see the evolution in the game. And it's a lot of fun for me to watch Cliff Kingsbury really kind of get married to the ground game. Because it's not that he never did it anyway, but he's definitely more dedicated now, and he credits that to DQ, which goes back to leadership and mentality, which I think that Eagles defense, as young as they are, it's all about mentality and how mature they are intellectually for why they're as good as they are.
I think it's on both sides of the ball for the Eagles. That mentality has carried them to the Final Four. And Saquon is elevating them almost at a quarterback level. Of course, he has an incredible support system. I mean, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert to take the attention away. One of the best offensive lines I've ever seen. But he's turning these plays that like Miles Sanders or DeAndre Swift would get 15 yards out of, and he's getting 60-plus yard touchdowns. I mean, he's a home run hitter. He's almost like Deshaun Jackson, but at running back. So it really is incredible. But I really do think push comes to shove, there will be moments in this game, maybe in the Super Bowl, where Jalen Hurts will have to be special. Is it have to be throwing the football? No, but he has to be able to run effectively like he has in the past. And David, that's one thing I'm really watching because of that knee injury he suffered against the Rams. It does look like he avoided any sort of real structural damage. But I'm going to be watching that closely, like from the minute that game starts. How is Jalen moving? Because if, say what you will about the inconsistencies of the passing game, if he cannot run, that's where I'm going to start to get nervous. Like you mentioned with Daniel's ability to escape, Hurts has got to be able to do that for them to get to New Orleans.
Yeah. I mean, look, Jalen Hurts doesn't run the ball as much as, maybe the casual fan might think he does these days, but he definitely extends plays.
And just the threat of it helps for Saquon too.
Yeah, absolutely. Out of all the starting quarterbacks in the NFL, Jalen Hurts has the longest time to throw average, in the league. And that's not by mistake. That's how he plays. That's who he is. Right. And I've talked to Washington Commanders DBs about that fact and how much that stresses them out. Because, obviously DBs can only be expected to cover for so long, right? Just like offensive linemen and pass blocking, but he's got the linemen that can pass block for him to do that. So now you need the secondary to match up, and it's really hard to do. But if he can't move out of the pocket, if he can't move effectively, that's gonna hurt that. And now, not only is Jalen going to be battling 12 defenders wearing, burgundy, he's going to be battling 11 defenders. He's going to be battling a 12th defender in his own inability to play with his instincts, right? And I think that can't be overstated, but it also can't be understated. Like a quarterback who can't play with his instincts, that's a problem. You know what I mean? And for Jalen, that's going to be interesting, like you said, to see how that develops during the course of the week. I believe he's going to play just because it's the NFC Championship game, right? Like if he can get out of that, he's going out on the field. But what we saw the last time these two teams faced off, and when Jalen got knocked out of the game with that concussion, as soon as Kenny Pickett came in there, Kenny can certainly move a little bit, but he's not Jalen. The Washington Commanders were able to stack the box. They were able to be much more aggressive against Saquon Barkley, really sell out more against the run. And Saquon, I think, had 120 yards up to that point where Jalen got hurt, or right after Jalen got hurt. But then the rest of the game, you saw what happened. He basically becomes a non-factor because the Commanders defense is able to adjust. If Jalen Hurts can't move, you're pretty much looking at the same situation. Outside
of that one big 60-yard touchdown, Saquon averaged under 3 yards a carry the rest of the way against Washington in that last game. So obviously Jalen Hurts, Jayden Daniels, huge factors in who gets to Super Bowl 59. But there's some other big matchups we got to get into coming up next right here on Crossover Thursday. Locked On Eagles and Locked On Commanders. This Crossover Thursday edition of Locked On Eagles and Locked On Commanders is brought to you by Talkspace. Therapy is a game changer. It can help manage stress, improve sleep, and communicate more effectively. But finding the right therapist and fitting sessions into a busy schedule, that can be a challenge. That's where Talkspace comes in. Talkspace, the leading virtual therapy provider, makes getting the help you need easy, accessible, and affordable. With Talkspace, signing up is simple. You can match with a licensed therapist who fits your needs usually within 48 hours and is convenient. You can have sessions from the comfort of your home and even message your therapist between appointments. Plus, Talkspace is covered by many insurance plans, and for most insured members, there's a $0 copay. It's never been easier to prioritize your mental health. As a listener of this podcast, you'll get $80 off your first month with Talkspace when you go to Talkspace.com/LockedOnNFL and enter the promo code SPACE80 to match with a licensed therapist today. Go to Talkspace.com/LockedOnNFL, enter that promo code SPACE80 to get $80 off your first month and show your support for the show. That's Talkspace.com/LockedOnNFL, promo code SPACE80. All right, we continue on this special edition of Crossover Thursday on Locked On Eagles, Locked On Commanders, NFC title style. Eagles Commanders this Sunday with a chance to get to Super Bowl 59 against either the Chiefs or the Bills. And of course, Jalen Hurts, Jayden Daniels, like that's a massive matchup. Saquon Barkley, like those big three, David, I feel like this could come down to, if the game's close, who has the ball last, because those are three of the best fourth quarter players in the NFL, three of the most clutch players in this league. But there's some other big time matchups too. Like I'm really watching personally the health of Quinyon Mitchell. He was out for the game after a shoulder injury in the first quarter. He suffered after tackling Matt Stafford, missed the rest of the game. He'll be good to go, though. He says he has no limitations. Quinyon Mitchell against Terry McLaurin is so important, because if you look at that first game against Washington, why the Eagles defense was able to shut down Jayden Daniels, a big part of that, Quinyon held Terry McLaurin to just one catch for, I believe it was 10 yards. The second game, McLaurin had a lot more success against Q and the rest of the secondary. Quinyon Mitchell against Terry McLaurin, like I think that's a matchup that's so crucial.
Yeah, what's really interesting to me, that first time that the Eagles and Commanders matched up, Vic Fangio didn't really blitz Jayden at all. I think it's the second lowest blitz rate from the Eagles defense this year. The second time, he blitzed the crap out of him. I think it's the second highest blitz rate from the Eagles this year. If not the second, it might be which is rare.
He's like blitzing. 28th in blitz rate.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that was kind of weird for Vic. And then you see, again, I mean, it turned into a shootout, right? You see kind of what ended up happening in Terry McLaurin, especially that big catch that he had against Quinyon. He gets outside leverage on Quinyon, but that's what happens when you have a cornerback out there who doesn't have the kind of help that they were able to give him in that first game. And, I love Quinyon, man. And I'll tell you, pre-draft last year, I thought I was a genius. Like I'm looking at, I'm like, they got this kid from Toledo, like third round in December. And I'm like, nah, man, like I think this dude's a first rounder. I'm like, guys, I got this hot take. There's this kid, Quinyon Mitchell. Look at me being so smart. And then it's like, oh, so we're all smart. Okay.
Yeah. Everybody jumped on the Q train.
It's just obvious talent, right? So eventually everybody gets on board. And I mean, the dude is just super talented, but he's still a cornerback in the National Football League. I don't care if you're Darrelle Revis in his heyday, if you're Marshawn Lattimore at his healthiest, like you can't stop a number one target all by yourself all game long because those guys are number one targets for a reason. In the first game, they gave him this Bermuda Triangle look where Quinyon just sold out to keep outside leverage. Like there wasn't a snap he took against Terry where Quinyon didn't just immediately take the outside angle on him.
Right.
And he had a safety helping inside deep, and he had usually a linebacker in Zach Bond or a slot corner and Cooper DeJean underneath to take away the slant and all that stuff. And it was brilliant, and it really, really worked. The problem is Vic Fangio knew that's not going to work twice against Jayden Daniels, not going to work twice against Terry or Cliff Kingsbury. So he had to come out with a different solution. And, it worked to a certain extent. Not his greatest game, Terry's greatest game of the season, but it also didn't work to a extent. This Commanders offense, it's Quinyon versus Terry. Obviously, it's going to be a lot of fun to watch, but it's also going to be Quinyon versus De'Ami Brown, Quinyon versus Olamide Zaccheaus every once in a while when he goes out there. Quinyon against Brian Robinson Jr. if they're in his own look and they move P-Rob outside. Like, there's going to be a lot more players that Quinyon sees.
Yeah, he doesn't shadow David. I mean, that's the thing. He's not going to follow him.
Yeah, there's been a theory out there. Like, some people float out there, like maybe he does need to shadow him.
I would personally like that. I don't think they're going to do it.
Yeah, I don't think exactly. I don't think they're going to do it. It's always sexy to say that. And Marshawn Lattimore, like, people see him shadow AJ Brown, last time around and all that stuff. And, I think Quinyon maybe someday will get to that level, but it's also just not in Vic's DNA. So I don't think that's necessarily what they're going to do. But it's going to be real interesting to see that chess match because, Quinyon is a great player. How healthy he is obviously is going to make a difference. I loved hearing him say he's going to be good to go. The problem is I've heard so many players say on Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday they're good to go and then they're out. So I hope that, he's accurate, not just, wanting to play because obviously he wants to go out there.
No, and I think on the other side, you mentioned Marshawn Lattimore. That was a heated battle in DC between AJ Brown, Marshawn Lattimore. That's going to be a big matchup too, David, but I feel like the Eagles on offense, like the passing game has been so inconsistent lately. And a lot of that's on Jalen Hurts. I feel like he just hasn't processed things as well as he has in the past. He's held onto the football for too long. Naturally, that's what he's going to do as a mobile quarterback. But some of it's just been, he's not seeing the field well. But I also do wonder how healthy AJ Brown is. He entered the playoffs with a leg injury that they've been kind of mute on, but he just has not looked the same. So the weather is going to be a lot better this Sunday. So the snow, of course, factored into it. But Brown had a few drops last game. Like, that's going to be an important matchup, and hopefully they can get a better version of AJ Brown than they've gotten in the last two games. He's only had 3 catches in these 2 playoff matchups.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, looking at that matchup as well, like last time the Eagles and Commanders faced off, the only time Marshawn, suited up for the Commanders against the Eagles, they went after him. And I remember my listeners said, look, guys, because the week before the Saints didn't even try to look at Marshawn Lattimore. Like, if their quarterbacks looked over there, saw 23, they went somewhere else. But I said, I was like, Jalen Hurts is not going to shy away from Marshawn, and Kellen Moore is not going to want him to, and AJ Brown's not going to want him to. And sure enough, I mean, I didn't expect them to go at him the way they did. But you know what? Test his hamstring, and that's exactly what they were doing. And I think they're going to go after him in this game too. But again, you always look at these rubber matches, like they're going to do things they don't always necessarily do. I think this could be a game where they go after they target Devontae Smith and go after Mikey Sainristil a lot more. I asked him yesterday, Mikey, if the Eagles come after you the way they came after Marshawn the last time, how would you feel about that? He gave me a very short but very simple answer. He said, game on, let's go, bring it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's the confidence that Mikey Sainristil plays with. But yeah, man, these receiver DB matchups are going to be huge. And we've danced around it, man, but we need to address it because it's a very real part of the postseason. Health. Like, how many times have we gotten to the end of an NFL season? And you know what? Maybe the best team on paper isn't the team playing or winning for the Super Bowl or even the 2 teams playing for the Super Bowl. They're just the healthiest, right? And I know it sucks for a fan base. I mean, it sucks for the players too, but obviously it sucks for a fan base to watch the Detroit Lions be the number 1 overall, the number 1 seed in the NFC and get
good point.
And then injuries just pile up. I mean, they lose a cornerback it's like second or third play of the game.
Yep.
And that obviously impacts things. And for the Philadelphia Eagles, like if you come into this game and this fan base comes in this game, Jalen is hobbled, Quinyon is hobbled, knock on wood, not too many, other injuries happen in the action. I know there's a couple of offensive linemen who are on the injury report without rest designations, which I expect to play, but it does mean they're dealing with something. It sucks for a fan base to watch your team go down, not necessarily just because of I'll never take credit from the other side of any matchup, but when you have to acknowledge that injury played a significant role as well. Look, the Commanders are not going to go out there and give back the NFC Championship trophy if that's what happens, but you do have to acknowledge the role that health might play in this, because the Commanders otherwise, outside of losing Sam Cosmi last weekend, are probably the healthiest team in the National Football League right now.
That's the thing. And that's how the Eagles made it to the Super Bowl in 2022. Of course, they were talented, but I mean, David, they had all 22 starters playing against the Chiefs. So sometimes that's just the way it falls in the NFL. But I do think the Eagles are deep enough where they can overcome a lot of these injuries and limitations. And if AJ Brown's banged up, if Jalen Hurts doesn't run the way he normally does, I do think they're going to look at, of course, you mentioned Devontae Smith, but they got to lean on Saquon Barkley and Dallas Goedert. Dallas Goedert's been the only consistent factor of the passing game these last two games. He's had 8 catches, over 40 yards in both matchups, a 20-plus yard touchdown against Green Bay, a couple 20-plus yard plays against Los Angeles. Like, Goedert can be that equalizer. And of course, number 26, like, you got to lean on Saquon against a run defense that, I mean, they did give up over 200 yards against Detroit last week. So the Eagles, the efficiency needs to be better in the passing game, but they should not change their identity in this matchup. They should be running the football heavily for 4 quarters.
Yep. And I think the Commanders are going to try to get Brian Robinson going again. Brian Robinson had the best game he's had in a while against the Detroit Lions.
He was good.
You know what I mean? We haven't seen him hit 4 yards per carry in a long time. So it was good to see that out of B-Rob. So the Commanders are going to be looking to do that. And I know, relative to the Eagles, they've been giving up a little bit more on the ground than they had, for the rest of the year. It's still good compared to the rest of the league. But, I know that some people are a little bit concerned about the Eagles starting to give up a little bit on the ground as well.
For sure. And the Eagles got to tackle a lot better than they have in the last 2 games as well. That's a big key to victory on Sunday. More keys to victory coming up next. Crossover Thursday, Locked On Eagles and Locked On Commanders. This Crossover Thursday edition of Locked On Eagles and Locked On Commanders is brought to you by FanDuel. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers, you can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets back if you win your first bet. That's $300 to keep the action going. So in my opinion, I would take that Saquon Barkley and or Jalen Hurts anytime rushing touchdown. Maybe you're banking on Jayden Daniels and Terry McLaurin to hook up for more than 1 touchdown. The FanDuel app, it's easy to navigate, and the variety of bets keeps every game exciting. Plus, when you win, you get paid instantly. No waiting around for your winnings, whether you're betting on your favorite team or just looking to add some excitement to the playoffs like Bills Chiefs, FanDuel has you covered. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. Get started with $300 in bonus bets at FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL, and of course, the Locked On Podcast Network. All right, Crossover Thursday continues right here on Locked On Eagles and Locked On Commanders. The NFC title this Sunday at Lincoln Financial Field, and we've been diving into a lot of the matchups. But David, what are, for the Commanders to continue this Cinderella story where they're road warriors? It's been 4 straight games they've won on the road. One more gets them to New Orleans, gets them to a Super Bowl with a rookie quarterback. If they're going to pull this thing off, what are the 3 main things they have to do against the Birds on Sunday?
Yeah, man, I'm tired and I've just been covering the games. Like, I'm not even playing the games. But I'm like, man, can we get it? Can we get a home game? I think technically the NFC is the home game this year, Super Bowl. So I guess technically if they make it to New Orleans, that would be a home game, but
it'll help you for the jerseys and that's it.
Yeah. So
be able to wear their home jerseys.
Yeah. So the 3 things that the Washington Commanders have to do to get a win over the Philadelphia Eagles, obviously you got to contain Saquon Barkley, right? It starts there. Every defender is admitting it. Got to be disciplined, all that stuff. If you are going to give up chunk plays against Saquon, give them up early. Don't give them up late, right? It's all about the adjustment factor. Like in the first game, it was Saquon, Kellen Moore, I don't know, whoever you want to give credit to, the O-line, making adjustments against Commanders defense, springing Saquon loose for a couple of big touchdowns. They end up getting the game, winning the game. In the second game, again, Jalen Hurts' injury plays a big role in this, but Saquon is demolishing them, and they're able to adjust and contain him, and then Washington ends up winning the game. It's really, who comes out swinging the hardest first tends to actually lose this game, which is interesting. Number 2, get after Jalen Hurts. Like we just talked about that injury. He's not going to be 100% either way. You got to test it and you got to figure out just how mobile he is. And the best way to do that is by getting after him and forcing him off the spot or making him show you that he can't get off the spot. And if that's the case, right. I know Eagles fans are going to be nervous pretty early on. And then render Quinyon obsolete. Look, I would love to be able to say, this is the time for Terry McLaurin to flex his muscles and show Quinyon who the big dog veteran is in the NFL, blah, blah, blah. No, just go away from him. But that doesn't mean you got to go away from Terry, right? Run Terry inside, away from him. Run Terry on the right side of the formation. Put other guys up there. Do things where you push Quinyon upfield and throw a pass underneath him and do these things. Look, DBs are very prideful about their real estate. So even if he's covering his guy downfield, but someone on his side of the field catches a pass for big yardage, he's going to get mad about it. He's going to get frustrated about it. And the best way to defeat anybody is to try to get in their head. So the best way to beat Quinyon is honestly to just make him a non-factor and turn him into someone who's just going to get a whole lot of cardio and not a whole lot of action while the rest of your players are getting all the action.
No, that's a good point. And I think for the Eagles, one of the keys to victory is Quinyon, and I think there are three defensive pillars on all three levels. They need to dominate. Quinyon Mitchell in the secondary, Zach Bond at linebacker, and Jalen Carter up front at defensive tackle, because those three are so crucial in stopping that dynamic duo that's gotten the Commanders to the Final Four. Of course, Jayden Daniels and Terry McLaurin. Jalen Carter, he wrecked that game against the Rams. Without him, Matt Stafford probably scores and the Eagles season's over, and you're doing this with Locked On Rams. So Jalen Carter has to keep up that domination. Zach Bond, too, without Nakobe Dean. He is so important in the run game, in the pass as well. And then Quinyon against Terry, that is a matchup that I'm watching big time. The other thing for this Eagles defense, it's easier said than done, of course, but they need to contain Jayden Daniels, keep him inside the pocket. I feel like at times the Eagles have over pursued on Jayden this year on mobile quarterbacks. It's allowed them to leak outside, make plays outside of structure. I thought that was a big reason Daniels led that comeback the last time these two teams played in DC. So they need to, of course, get pressure on the interior, try to suffocate him and keep him inside the numbers. And then for Jalen Hurts, it's the opposite. He's got to be able to run. I just do not believe, even with all the weapons they have, the defense they have, the offensive line, and Saquon, if Jalen Hurts cannot move and he is a pocket passer, he's a statue on Sunday, and he just cannot make plays with his legs, I just don't know how they win this football game. I don't. So that I'm going to be really the most nerve-wracking part of this game. It's not going to be any fourth quarter game-winning drive. It's honestly going to be that first drive that the Eagles are on offense and watching how he's moving. That is the game-changing moment, I think, will be right from the jump.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, you bring up a really good point about how to rush Jayden Daniels. The best teams in the league that have tried to have had some success defending Jayden Daniels have not overrushed the quarterback. And I know
that's how they do it with Hurts too. That's the way to do it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I know Seth Joyner, did a video talking about how important that's going to be this weekend, and he couldn't be more correct in that. And Vic Fangio knows that. He's going to tell his players that. Again, it comes back to that mental maturity and intelligence, right? Everybody knows it, but some people, the moment gets too big, or, oh man, I might have an outside edge. I might be able to get to him fast enough, and let me take advantage of this. And that's when you lose contain. But we'll see, how they do it. But yeah, it's going to be very interesting. Like you said, that Jalen Hurts injury, man, I think that's point number one that everybody's going to be looking out for, including Washington Commanders fans. But it should be a lot of fun, man. And one way or another, the season's coming to an end in a few weeks, and it's been a blast.
It's been a hell of a ride. Eagles Commanders round 3 this Sunday at Lincoln Financial Field, the NFC Championship with a trip to the Super Bowl on the line. An NFC East rivalry heightened up to a new level this week. For David Harrison, I'm Lou DiBiase signing off right here on Crossover Thursday. Locked on Eagles, Locked on Commanders. Thanks as always for making us your first listen each and every day. We'll see you on Friday. Until then, have a great day, everybody.